Okay, cool. So now we should be recording. All right, cool. Welcome back to week 5 of English 1000. So in this class, it goes a little longer than the other courses. You may have already kind of noticed that. The English 1000 class goes for about 16 weeks. The TCM 110 actually ends at the end of next week, and then we start the CAS 1800, or like the basically computer class. So so it's really cool. We're getting some college credits and stuff under our belt. You figure if you're in the TCM class after next week, you'll have 3 college credits from Clear University completed. So it's really good. Let's see. Let me go ahead and get the screen share and all that kind of stuff going here. Let's see. There it is. And the screen. Okay. Cool. So it should be sharing the screen. Opening up the PowerPoint here. All right, and we'll change that. We'll go into view there. Let's see. Over here on the Zoom, I'm gonna make the Zoom a little bit bigger and open up the chat in case there's any questions. There we go. I got sometimes if you see me kind of pull things over, it's because I have 2 computer monitors. So sometimes I'll just kind of pull one from one screen to another screen. So let's see, let me do view. We'll do reading view. There we go. Reading view. There it is. All right. So week 5, this week, we're going to talk about personal reflection and objective analysis. And we'll talk about like a writing hamburger. So it's going to be a fun week. So subject and verb identification. So the first step, eliminate prepositional phrases. The boy at the door is my brother. After several minutes, we located the keys for the car. I discovered my cat had run up the tree. So it can subject and object confusion. So it can cause some confusions, like subject, who are we talking about in the sentence? Verb, what is the subject doing? And object, what is the verb working on? So some learning objectives we're going to go over today. It's kind of a shorter lecture. Originally, I planned all these courses to be in person at the Detroit campus. So without a lot of the group activities and kind of more interaction, group discussions and everything, a lot of these lectures are really short because I don't like to do a really long lecture and everyone fall asleep and stuff. So I tend to do shorter lectures and usually plan on just doing a lot in class. But since we're online and remote, so we're kind of doing more in the discussion forum and less stuff in person. So some of the learning objectives is categorize the differences between personal reflection versus objective analysis, demonstrate the ability to write a short piece of objective analysis, practice summarizing or paraphrasing a passage, and practice writing cohesive paragraphs. So some definitions. Objective is fact-based, impartial, and neutral. So that's like what you want your news to be. You want it to be like neutral, no what do you call it? No agendas or anything. You want it to be very objective. Subjective is subject to personal feelings and individual experience. So basically, news nowadays. When I was a kid, news reports always seemed really objective. Like they just report the news and you kind of drew your own conclusions. Now it's kind of like all of them, there's different channels depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on. And I'm kind of like really moderate with stuff, so it's really hard for me to get news. I have to watch both like opposing sides and then try and figure out you know what the actual news is. So carrying on with definitions, objective is like a journalist strive or the journalists strive to engage in objective reporting. Before we proceed, we need an objective assessment of the facts of the case, said the detective. These are all just kind of examples of being objective. I want an objective analysis of our cash flow problems on my desk by Monday morning, said the board chair. And then subjective is my subjective stance, wrote the columnist, is that pasta was not very delicious. Journalists should not allow subjective views to contaminate hard news reporting. The article suffers from subjective interpretations of data, and we reject it from from publication in this journal, wrote a peer reviewer. So those are some examples of objective and subjective. One time it was funny, I wrote a book one time, and someone wrote a book review of it and said it was objectively bad. And I'm like, wait, how can it be objectively bad? Because like objective is like more fact-based. Doesn't he mean subjectively bad? I'm like, if he's gonna write a bad review of the book I wrote, at least use the right words, So this would be an in-class discussion. So normally we'd break into groups. So here's some things you can just kind of think about when you're watching the video later. Think about a time when it was important to share your feelings about something, a happy time during an emergency, or after something important happened to you. How did you share that? How were your feelings received by the other person? And then second one, think about a time when finding facts was more important. Did you like the facts you found? How did you act on them? Were the facts helpful in solving a problem or understanding a situation better? Explain how this happened and what role the facts played. And it's hard to do because we're not in groups, but what so well, I guess because if you're thinking about it later when you watch the video, you can't really ask yourself what you learned from other people's experiences. So, but the first two you can kind of ask yourself and everything while you're listening to the video. So the best paragraphs have structure. So paragraphs like all writing, you want it to kind of have like a nice structure, so everything kind of flows together really good. So the structural pattern for a paragraph, it's almost like a miniature essay. So you have your topic sentence, your main idea. So almost like the thesis of an essay, or like what your essay is going to be about. And then supporting sentences. So it's information that back up your topic sentence. So this is almost like the body of an essay, but it's like the middle part of the paragraph. And then conclusion that sums up everything clearly. No new information is introduced, but reiterated in a different way. So that is almost exactly the conclusion of an essay, because in an essay, your first sentence is your thesis, kind of rewritten or reiterated. And it sums up everything. So paragraphs themselves are kind of like mini essays. So it's like an essay within an essay within an essay. Or wait, an essay within an essay. Okay, yeah, so there's two levels because there's a paragraph that's like a mini essay, and then there's an essay that's the essay. Unless you have like different sections, like if it's a really long essay and there's different sections, then you could have an essay within an essay within an essay. So it gets really meta when you think about it. Don't write in conclusion for the conclusion, because usually if it's the last paragraph, they know it's the conclusion. When paragraphs don't follow this format, they can lead to audience confusion. You don't want your audience confused. Especially a lot of times when you write something, you're trying to get a point across. So if your audience is confused, they're not going to get the point you're trying to tell them. So coherence, you want to like forming a unified whole. So all these things kind of work together to create like coherence in your writing. So you have words and phrases and sentences, and they all just kind of work together. So here's the activity. Editing for cohesion. So here's an example. Bernard led a healthy lifestyle. He ate balanced meals, worked out 3 times a week, and drank plenty of water. He had diabetes. So normally this will be a class discussion, but we'll just kind of do this as like a rhetorical thing. You can kind of ask yourself while you listen to the video. So were there unintentional implications? What is the tone? Need any clarification? And is there any repetition? So it's just some stuff you should kind of ask yourself to make sure everything's cohesive in your writing. So kind of a better way to write this would be Bernard led a healthy lifestyle. He had diabetes, but focused on eating balanced meals, working out 3 times a week, and drinking plenty of water. He said the healthy style was even more important considering his diagnosis. So it's kind of a little bit better because the first one, it's like, okay, cool, he's into health stuff. And then what? Yeah, diabetes. So the second one is kind of, it just kind of has better cohesion. It's kind of a lot easier to read and kind of gets a point across a lot better. I had an alarm to remind me to do things because I'm old and I forget stuff if I don't set an alarm on my computer. So structural patterns. So there's different kind of strategies when writing an essay. There's the cause and effect. It's though the cause and effect kind of strategy or technique. It's effective in persuasion essays or books where the author is trying to convince readers of something. There's the compare and contrast. A lot of times, college essays, it seems like you get asked to compare and contrast stuff a lot. So you'll probably do a lot of those. That's where the author, it's like an evaluation or evaluative essay, where the author evaluates similarities and differences of a consistent subject. Like I teach ancient history over at Jackson College over in Jackson, Michigan. And I like right now I'm teaching ancient history, and one of the essays you have to write is comparing and contrasting two ancient civilizations, like the Indus Valley River civilization in Egypt. So they're kind of comparing and contrasting those, or they'll compare and contrast two different pharaohs of Egypt. So a lot of times you'll be called on to write that kind of stuff in college. Sequential order. Those are usually like instruction manuals, or at my day job, they call it a process paper because it kind of details a process. So yeah, instruction manuals, recipes, that's basically an instruction manual, and historical stories. Historical stories aren't really an instruction manual, but you got to pretty much tell them in order, in sequential order, because you don't want to start with like, you know, the Second World War ended in 1945. It began in 1939. Like it's way out of order. So historical stories you want to have in sequential order or in order of time. Order of importance. So sometimes you would have the most important and relevant thing first. They do that a lot in news articles because news articles back in the day when they first started doing news articles, they would have all the important stuff on at the beginning. That way, if something happened and they had to cut it short because another news item came up and or something like that, they could cut off the bottom part of the article and then throw in another article, and they could kind of move stuff around. So the important stuff was They often use order of importance, where the important stuff was first, because you might have to cut the story in half. And then you have a problem and solution. Um, they use this sometimes for like argumentative essays, where they're uh, trying to get they're arguing something and then doing like a call to action, or there's some other essay they use it into, but I can't remember. But basically, it's convincing someone that a problem exists, and then convincing the reader the problem exists, and then convincing the reader that a specific course of action is best. And then part two, in these, it might seem like, like part two is really fast, but like in theory, if we were in person, we'd be starting part two like 45 minutes to an hour into our class time, because we'd be doing like a lot of those group activities you saw on the slides. So if I'm ever doing the slides online and you're like, part two, we just started part one. Like, usually there'd be a lot more stuff going on. And next week, as long as everything goes according to plan, next week will be the last week we're doing Zoom meetings, and after that we'll be in person. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to it. It's just a lot more fun in person. One of the homework things this week is, here, let me pull up the homework here. Let's see, oh, hold on, I messed up where I was at on the side. All right, let's see, assignments and week 5. There we go. So it's basically the same thing that's in the PowerPoint. So the most important way, probably the most important way to we communicate objective information to an audience is by using other resources. Knowing how to paraphrase information from resources and summarize articles are important skills that help us do this. So then there's a link here by Kennedy, and you can download that. So you want to open this article by Kennedy by clicking on the link. You want to read the article. Ideally, you read it a couple of times, but I was a student once. I know how it is. You're probably gonna read it once, but ideally, you read it. Usually the first time you're just reading it, and then the second time you're looking for things that you're going to use to do the homework. So you want to take notes in your own words as you read. So anything you think is important that you want to use for your summary, when you paraphrase it, write it down in notes. And this is probably really important for a lot of essays you write and research papers, because where students usually go wrong is they'll copy and paste from a source and put it in their paper, and then try and just reword it. Change a couple words here or there, and then it still will come back 95% plagiarized or copied from the internet. So what you want to do is kind of write out your notes in your own words. And then I've never seen anyone get hit with plagiarism if they use that technique of writing out the notes in their own words. So that's something I would do. When way back when I was a student, we didn't really use computers a lot. A lot of it was just reading books, and we'd have to handwrite the stuff out. So there wasn't a lot of plagiarism. But right now, it's like computers make it super easy, because you can just kind of copy and paste stuff. So best thing to do though is just write it out in your own words. Let's see. Let me move this out of the way for now, because we got it over on the thing there. Oh, here we go. We'll move this there. There we go. All right. Then after you write the notes in your own words, in a cohesive paragraph of 5 to 6 sentences, summarize the main points of the article in your own words. Your concluding sentence should tie your summary points together, and then just turn in the assignment. So it's not too bad, writing a paragraph. It's pretty doable. Good assignment for this week. So when and where do you give credit? When you quote or paraphrase sources, you must give credit in two places. In the paragraph, so you'll have like an in-text citation. So usually you'll have like parentheses, and then usually the author's last name. I think, am I saying this right? Because it's complicated because at another college I teach, we use MLA style, and at Clear we use APA style. But basically, you just in the paragraph, you want to do a citation at the end of the sentence. Uh, so you want to use signal phrases and uh, parentheses citations. And then at the end of the paper, listed alphabetically, you'll have like a reference page of like all your sources you used when you were doing the research or writing the paper. So you want to have them in two places. And they say like whenever you quote or paraphrase a source, I say to be on the safe side, anytime you say anything that's not like public knowledge or that's not natural knowledge, you want to cite it, so like um if you say the sky is blue, you don't have to cite it. It's just kind of like inherent knowledge that everyone knows. But if you say the stoichiometric ratio of air to fuel mixture in an internal combustion engine is 14.7, then you want to cite that because that's not something everyone knows. It might be something that you think is really kind of common knowledge, like in your field, like as a mechanic. um, it's kind of like common knowledge of intake, combustion, or intake, ignition, combustion, exhaust is like how an internal combustion engine works. Intake, ignition, combustion, exhaust. So like that's kind of common knowledge in the automotive field, but it's not common knowledge for everybody. So I would want to cite a source. Even though I've known that for a long time, I don't remember where I learned it. I would still find a source where they say it and then cite that source. So it's the same thing if you were writing something. If you cited a source that you learned in the academy, or if you say a fact that you learned in the academy, you might not remember the instructor's name in the academy that told you that information, or it might have been so long ago you don't remember how you knew it. It's just something you've known for years as a police officer. You still want to kind of look up a source where they say that and then cite it. So anything that's not regular knowledge, like humans breathe oxygen, you don't have to cite a source because everyone kind of knows that. Sky is blue, don't got to cite a source. Anything else, anything that the average person won't know, you'll want to cite a source on. I would do that to be on the safe side. You don't always have to, but to be on the safe side, that's what I would do. All right, here's some examples of in-text citations. So a single phrase for a source with one author. You could, so in your sentence here, you could say according to Smith, and then you would just have the date here. Now, if you don't have a, like in here, you're already naming the author, so you don't have to put Smith inside parentheses. Like down here, they don't name the author, so they have to put it inside parentheses. So, and then there's a quote here. So if this is a direct quote from the book, make sure you use quotation marks and then put the page number there. So then signal phrase with a source with no author listed. You'll find this a lot nowadays on websites and things. There won't be an author listed. And so let's say this was a website called Managing Employees Effectively, and it was published in 2010. Or it could even just be like some type of like a handout or something that you find online where you see it was published in 2010, but there's no author. Maybe a company just published it. about how to manage employees. Um, so uh, it's the sentence like this is the source here: managing effective employees. Uh, and then you'd have the year 2010, and then you would just continue on with your sentence. So it's like uh, this article or website, whatever this is, indicates that an open line of communication is central to company success. And then there's a parentheses citation for source with an author. So in here, they don't say the author's name in the sentence, so you have to put inside the parentheses. And basically all the since you're not talking about the author in the sentence, you just put all the information at the end. So one expert concludes that employees, or quote, employees respond more positively to managers who are honest and hands-on, close quote, uh, and then all the information here, like the author's name, the year, and then the page. And then so a parenthesis citation with a source with no author listed. So kind of like this other example where it might have been like a handout published by a company, or maybe it's a website, basically just anything without an author. Um, you would put an open line of communication is central to a company, is central to company success. And then you would just have the name of the article or website. I'm not sure which one this is specifically, and then the date. It might be, it's either like a one page like handout created by a company, or just probably a website. And then at the bottom, it shows when the website was created, 2010. So references, here's kind of a breakdown of it. So this one, there's a corporate author, so it's not an individual person. So you have the corporate author, the date of publication, the title of the entry in a larger website. So basically, like the name of this article is Violence on Television. What do children learn? What can parents do? And then the title of the website, APA Online. And then when you accessed it, this is really important because they might go through, like there might be new information, and then they go through and edit this, and then the sentence you're quoting or the information you're using is no longer in here. So you want to put when you retrieved it, like, so the retrieval date is the day you looked it up on. So you want to put that on there, like whenever you read the source, put that date on there, because especially on websites they can go through and change it. And then include the URL. Usually you want to put it, you can put it as like a link on there. And then the name's always kind of out here. Everything else is kind of indented. So here's some resources. From what I understand, when I play the video on Zoom, it doesn't work. So I won't play it right now. And then they have appointments at the Writing Center, and naturally nowadays with everything going on, you can do like a Zoom appointment or something like that. So always feel free to do that kind of stuff. And because I know Cleary's kind of a pretty good drive from my house. It's about 45 minutes on a good day. It's 45 minutes. So you could probably do a Zoom meeting with the Writing Center if you wanted to. So then academic voice reminders. So you're in college, so you're writing as an academic. So there's some things you don't want to use because you're an academic person now. So avoid cliche phrases, i.e., like the plague, it is what it is, calm before the storm, read between the lines, only time will tell, all that kind of stuff. You want to avoid, at least in like an essay and like anything formal, you just want to kind of avoid it. So you want to be descriptive. You don't want to be vague. So you don't want to say it, thing, there, or that, there. You want to be really specific about stuff, or descriptive. You want to avoid unnecessary words like really, super, extremely, so. Because they're not really necessary, especially like people will include really a lot in like an essay. You don't really need it. Um, yeah, it's just not necessary in there. Avoid starting sentences with conjunctions like and, but, or. They always just kind of look weird and out of place, but it's a grammatical thing. You want to avoid it. But whenever I see them, they just kind of look out of place. Write in third person. Do not refer to yourself or audience unless prompted. Uh, so normally you wouldn't say like I think this, or uh, usually you don't want to say I or me or anything like that. You want to kind of just speak as like a third person. You want to proofread for grammatical errors. That's really big because you don't want, like I was reading, it was a dissertation today, and I always wondered, I'm like, do dissertation, like the people on the dissertation committee actually read the entire dissertation? Um, so I was reading one today because I want to write one because I'm working on my doctorate. I was reading one today and there was typos, and I'm like, what? And up until then, I was like, wow, this guy knows his stuff. And then I saw typos. I'm like, what? How could he let this get by? Like he's just got to run spell check. So it really kind of messes up the point you're trying to get across if there's like a lot of spelling errors or grammatical errors and things like that. You want to avoid contractions. Usually, I'm not real big on avoiding contractions because I think it kind of makes people sound like a robot. Like if I say I cannot do that instead of I can't do that. But in like a formal paper, it's probably best to avoid contractions. And then use thesis sentence as a roadmap for or in your introduction. So usually before you even write an essay or any kind of paper, you want to kind of know what your thesis is. Like, what's your topic? Why are you writing this? All that kind of stuff. And at the end, when you're at your final paragraph and you're summarizing everything and kind of wrapping everything up, usually you want to avoid in conclusion. Yeah, it just kind of seems weird because it's the last paragraph of the essay, so they know it's your conclusion, so you don't have to tell them. And that's it for this week. It's kind of a shorter one. So hopefully everyone's doing really well. I've been grading the homework and everything. It looks like everyone's doing amazing. And I'm really excited. We got this week is pretty much over. Next week is our last week online, and then finally I get to meet everyone in person. I got a lot of really good, smart students, and I want to meet them in person and shake their hand and be like, thank you for making this an awesome job, because having dedicated, intelligent students, it makes it way easier for me. So thanks for making my job easier. I'll uh I'll talk to everyone next week on our hopefully last Zoom meeting, unless anything happens. But hopefully it'll be our last Zoom meeting, and then we're in person after that on the 17th. I had to look at my calendar. The 17th is the day where we're live in person. It's going to be fun. Really looking forward to it. And looking forward to meeting everyone and having cool classroom discussions, because that's probably the best part about teaching, is kind of hearing everyone's ideas and everything. So I'll talk to everyone later, and have a good rest of the week, and I'll see you next week.